Okay, so the first Maamar of Avraham Zakein is from Chaf Cheshvan. I believe it was a surprise for bringing. The Rebbe came back from the oil. And this is Aבtzon when the Rebbe started for bringing Chaf Cheshvan. Before that you had when Chaf Cheshvan would be on Shabbos, there would be Fabringans about Ramesh Maseid and Parshas Vayera. But Fabringin during the week, I don't know if it was the first one Mamish, but that's when the series started. After Lamed Hey, the Rebbe Fabringin Lamed Vav, Lamed Zayin, into the Mems, the Rebbe Fabringin Chaf Cheshvan. So this Aבtzon was the start of the Chaf Cheshvan Fabringins, the Seder of the Chaf Cheshvan Fabringins. And by the Fabringin, the Rebbe said that Maamar, the Rebbe started with the Maamar of Avraham Zakein. And as you see in the Sikha afterwards, the Rebbe Aבtzon was Mamshich after the Maamar. The Rebbe spoke about the mitzvah of Yavne Mechachomer, right, which Aבtzon sort of evolved into, was part of mitzvah Bayis Mali Sfarim, Bayis Mali Sfarim, right, the way it's written in the Shashal Sayachas, Bayis Mali Sfarim in Sograyim, Yavne Mechachomer. But the emphasis, the Yavne Mechachomer had sort of its own details as well, not only Bayis Mali Sfarim. So then one of the Kudas the Rebbe kochten then was opening yeshivas, right? You see this in the Sikha here. That's when the whole mustig of these small yeshivas opening, at the time you had, what was the first one, maybe New Haven, Seattle, Miami, they all opened then, Lamed Hey, Lamed Vav, Lamed Zayin. I think Lamed Hey is when it's sort of Lamed Daled, Lamed Hey, it was around this kufa. The Rebbe kocht in this Indian, and the Rebbe connected to the Maamar. Kamapam, the Rebbe speaks about the Indian of the Yegiyah, right? That's the Nechud of the Maamar, the Yegiyah. Hadafka through Yegiyah, you get to the highest levels. Now, the Maamar is Meyostan on Avraham Zakein Tzamach Vav, which is the famous Maamar, and the Rebbe is mitzayin often. Not only the Rebbe is mitzayin in Maamarim and Sichis, also in Igris and Mainis, when the Rebbe speaks to people about learning Be'iyun, about doing a Avtzon B'Yegiyah, B'chlal, about the whole Nechud of Yagaito Matzasi, the Rebbe very often is mitzayin to Avraham Zakein. That's the Maamar, that's like the Indian Chassidus for Yegiyah. So in the Maamar, Beker, in Tzamach Vav, the main part of the Maamar speaks about Yegiyah and Torah. But it's not just Yegiyah and Torah, then the Maamar speaks about Nisyonis, Yegiyah and Mitzvahs. There's a Mugadik of Avraham Zakein from the Rebbe. Where there, the Rebbe finishes off, and then the Maamar, I think it's Melukah Daled, that after the Rebbe speaks about Barichas, the meaning of Yegiyah and Torah, Al Derech said that was an meaning from Yegiyah and Avtzon. That Avtzon Mayonis needs a special Yegiyah. The Rebbe said the Maamar, I don't know if this verse in the Mugav, but the Rebbe said the Maamar, the Rebbe said, because in Avtzon Mayonis there's Yafutzu Ma'inisecha Chutza. So the Rebbe said there has to be a special Yegiyah for Yafutzu, a special Yegiyah for Ma'inisecha, and a special Yegiyah for Chutza. Right? When you learn the Maamarim, whenever the Rebbe speaks about Yafutzu Ma'inisecha Chutza, you have it in Igris, you have it in Sichis, the Rebbe is always medayik. There's 3 points here: Yafutzu, the Yafutzu Bizinsof, Ma'inisecha, authentic Mayonis, and Chutza. And each one is a challenge. And each one, when you do one, you're compromising. You're possibly compromising the other, because if you're doing it all the way into chutza, it won't be mayonis. If you're so makbid on the mayonisecha, you're a purist, then you might not go into the chutza. Each one there's a yegiyah, especially yegiyah b'yafut mayonisecha chutza. Anyway, so b'chal the meaning of yegiyah and linum Torah be'iyun is from this Maamar. Now, when you go into the havanas ha'inyanim, so what's the nekuda the Rebbe at? Right. So in Beifin Klali, the Rebbe speaks about. That brings from Torah. It's Parshas Lech Lecha, yeah, it's the last parsha. That Avraham Iseichel Anelo Mikol Rayin. And when you add the hey, it comes Hamshacha Lamata Mata. Fine, and then it speaks about 2 Eifanim in Helam. Helam Sheyeshnim Mitzias, Helam Sheinim Mitzias. B'chlal in Chassidus, when it speaks about Helam Sheyeshnim Mitzias, Helam Sheinim Mitzias, it's mitzayin to the Maamar, to Avraham Zakein. In Tafshin Nun Aleph, so by Shavuos, so there is a Sikha and there's a Maamar. Right, there's a Sikha that the Rebbe actually was Magia months later. I think it came out in Av. A Sikha about Terech Hadash Midi Tetzei. So that's a Sikha. And the Maamar, the Rebbe got the Maamar then B'Shal Sha'ala Tavshin Chafei. In both the Sikha and the Maamar, the Rebbe speaks about Helam Sheyeshnim Mitzias and Helam Sheinim Mitzias. In the Sikha, it's more B'Kitzer, and the Maamar there it's also B'Kitzer, but there's more Hasbara. There's a lot of very Geshmaka Oisias there. It's a very Geshmaka Maamar and hard Maamar, but there's very Geshmaka Hagdaris there that help out a bit the Hagdaris over here. So in the Sikha, the Rebbe read about the Chidushei Torah that are going to be lost at Lavi, and the Rebbe asks, how could there be Chidushei Torah lost at Lavi? Matan Torah given nor event design Nachamol is given nor ein Mol, and it can't be. There's no new Torah chas v'shalom. And the nekuda is that even the chidushim when Mashiach comes, nemru l'Moshe miSinai. It's just a gilui. It's something that we have behelim now. Will be begilui when Mashiach comes. Oy bazei for the shaylos. What's the chiddush of the chidushim of Mashiach? Every Talmud Vasik also l'chadish is nemru l'Moshe miSinai. In other words, if we believe that the chidush Torah of lost life say that it's taka davar chadash, we understand what makes it chadash. But if the word of chidush is just a gilui, so the Zalbazach is every chidush Torah. We call it chidush. Either everything comes from Moshe Rabbeinu. Talmud Vasik also l'chadish. You call them Moshe miSinai. So what's the difference between the two chidushim? So it's interesting. A few years before, I think Memtes, a bacher, I believe, asked the Rebbe, what's the difference between the chidush Torah that the bacher comes up with and the chidush Torah of Mashiach? What's an afgemina? So the Rebbe wrote the zettel. So the Rebbe said, "It's al derech." I don't remember the exact lashon, but the nekuda that the Rebbe wrote here is al derech when you go from Yeshivik Tana to Yeshivik Deila. That was the Rebbe's answer. The difference between the two style chidushim there's when you open a Kovetz and Resources of the Mesifta, yeah, which is very gishmak and very important chidushim, yeah. And then some will say that those are bigger chidushim, as Kimavur in couldn't say it's Chaim, yeah. The chidush Torah shloi never l'Moshe miSinai. Chas v'shalom, not speaking about anyone specific, and then Yeshivik Deila is al derech chidushim of Mashiach. Very interesting mind. In the Sikha, the Rebbe's mevayer that what's the difference? That the chidushim that a person's mechadish today, and we say that nemru l'Moshe miSinai, bis megala. What's the dargas achidush? It's like helam sheyeshni b'metzias. The chidush Torah of Mashiach is helam she'eni b'metzias. Meaning they're both here. They're both behelam. So both of them are not real chidush if you're asking from that perspective. In other sikhs, the Rebbe is masber anish. It's not a real chidush, but a different asbar. But the Rebbe says that they're all betzim gilui of what before. So what's the difference between the two chidushim? What's the big flaw, the gadlus, the gevald of the chidushim of Mashiach? Helam sheyesh b'metzias, helam she'ein b'metzias. Fine. The shaila is, what does it practically mean? Helam she'ein b'metzias. So then it's not behelam. Helam sheyesh b'metzias, I know. Helam sheyesh b'metzias. Here's a siddur. Here you see it. I block it. It's here b'metzias. It's helam. It's helam. You can't see it. It's hidden. Fine. That's what every helam is. The whole idea of helam. When you say that tzimtzum is lav kipshotei, what's about lav kipshotei? It's not the pshat Deivshar took away the oir. The oir is here. It's behelam. Meaning it's da. It's b'metzias. You just can't see it. When you say helam she einei b'metzias, so then it's not helam. It's taken not here. When you say Mashiach is going to be Megala and Yonim, that Eini b'Metzias, it's taka emes achidush. It's Eini b'Metzias. So number one, why call it Helam, Sheini b'Metzias, and call it, why call it Gilui? Call it Chidush. It's taka be a Chidush. And also, but then even when you want to call it, what does that even mean? What's the Pirush Amilis? What does it mean Helam Sheini b'Metzias? Pshad, you read this Maamar, yeah. What does it mean Helam Sheini b'Metzias? If it's not b'Metzias, then what's Pshad b'Helam? It's not b'Helam. The guy didn't show up. He's behelim. He's not here.
It still comes with chaos. It's coming from.
So what's pshat eini b'metzias? So he says so is a havana. What's meant when eini b'metzias? And if it's bekoyach that, then it is b'metzias.
Crack open a tzarech halam, which is no fire inside.
Huh?
Crack open a tzarech halam, which is no fire inside.
So why does the fire come from there? Fine. All right, whichever way you'll go, you go back to the same space. You're saying that in a right. So what's the mashal? The famous mashal that's always brought. We get the helam sheyesh b'metzias. Helam sheyesh b'metzias is a shalheves shebeseicha gacheles. Right, you have a shalheves shal gabi agacheles. But even klali, that's like right in Kabbalah, that's brought when you get to the spheres hagluyos. Right, and then there's the right. So you have. Basically, you have the coals and you have the shalheves coming out, but even that shalheves, it's kosher lagacheles, right? It can never be disconnected. It's an account of the spheres that they have to be that they're always connected to the moir. They're connected to the source. They're not independent. Chas v'shalom. Right? Natzilis, it's elikus. You have spheres, but it's not like there's chachma and bina and das and chesed and kavura and they're running their own show. They're kshurim ba'gacheles. But then there's the shalheves shebesoich hagacheles. right? So you look at coals, you don't see a fire, but you blow on it, it comes out. So what are we saying there? We're saying there is a fire there, but it's you have to bring it out. Fine. Then there's Eish Shevitzur Chalamish. So it's in the stove. So, but we're saying no. Here there's no fire in the stove. Right? The way it's mevar barichas, it's not very geschmack. Not always when it's mevar the Indian, it shows how all the inyanim are connected to each other. Right? There's 3-4 inyanim here. That each one is the siba of the next one. Right? It all starts off on how the fire exists or doesn't exist in the gacheles versus the tzur. So in the gacheles, it's there. Now, is there fire in the tzur? No, there is no fire there. Because there's no fire there, that's why it could be. The lashon always consider this. It could be in water. Does he say the lashon here? Does he say? No, he says it could be there for 50 years. Yeah, it's 50 years. There's lashon as it could be there for many years, and okay, then you take it out of the water, and now you do a hakah, and the fire comes out. Okay, so 1 second. So are we saying that the fire is so hidden that whatever you do, it's like a black box, the plane that it falls into the water or into fire, it always stays? In other words, is that that's not what we're saying. We're just saying that it's very, very strong. No, the nekuda that he's always bringing out is what? What's the lashon he says here? Yet, at the same time, if I take two other items and start banging, I'm not going to get fire, right? Only this tzur is going to bring up the fire. So there is fire here, but there isn't fire, right? So that's where it gets tricky. What's the geder? And then he says even nachmer that because in the gacheles there's a fire, so when the fire comes out, there's a gvul. How much you could blow on it and keep the fire going. At some stage, the fire disappears. The fire can't stay there for so long because it's never mitzias. Masha'enke in the eish is eini b'mitzias in the tzur. So for years later, you could get eish from the tzur. Right. It sounds very geschmack, but when you break it down, it's like 1 second. So the less you exist, the more you're capable. I'm saying what it's geschmack of vart and avodah, bittul. But what does that practically mean? It's like someone has a certain amount of energy. Okay, so because you have a certain amount of energy, so that energy could come to a limit, and then once the energy reaches its limit, you don't have the energy anymore. But if you don't have the energy, then you could do bligvul, or a man for first class, yeah? So might as well do. What's the Havana here? So obviously we're speaking about something, right? It's never a pasha. Obviously we're speaking about something that exists, but a different kind of existence. Different kind of existence. Right, the lashon in the Maamarim. What does he say here? At the end of the keta here on the top of page 267. Maamar. The end of the first keta. There's no geder or hagbala shel eish. Right, later on, the next keta, halfway through, Mashiach and Eisha b'tzorach halamish, ein v'chinas metzias esh klal, sheigam kishetzorach halamish munach b'mayim lo yishune v'lo yikove koyach ha'eish aloi. Hine tzorach liis ishtalos v'yigir gbil v'yotzon menu eish. He brings this sort of derech agav in part of the shlila, but this is the vart that's mevur. There's metzias eish and there's koyach eish. Right, metzias eish and koyach eish. Gacheles has metzias eish. Tzur has koyach eish. Now, what does that mean practically? So he explains when he get to koyach hanefesh, right? So he brings the dugma koyach hanefesh, so it's koyach seichel. So there's the seichel, and then there's seichel anelam, then there's the seichel anelam mikol rayin, which is the sort of the seichel nelam, and that comes even through yashar. That comes through regular learning, through regular growth. But then there's the what does he call it? What does he call it? Seichel atzmi. What does he call it here in the Maamar? Right, the next page. Niftochim hakoiches vayichel shloish lo yiberach lemadregas keich hamaskel shaloi kvi shayikoidim yegia atzum azul. And ganzen andere gather seichel that a person shaykh to get to in a oifen of bein haroich. That's what he calls it here, bein haroich. Right, so oifen klali, Chassidus mevayer that there's seichel galui, there's seichel nela, keich hamaskel, and then there's koya, and then there's seichel ha'atzmi, which is connected b'chlal to the koiches hanefesh. The koiches hanefesh, you have koiches hagluyim, koiches ne'elamim, and koiches atzmi. So Pashta Mashal for the three. So you have someone that has right koyach hatnua, koyach masa, how much he could carry. So on a regular day, a person that when he walks around with his koyach gluyim, a koyach galui, so you could carry a certain amount. You could work a certain amount of energy to do things. Then one day, a person sees an oitzer, or he sees something very very gishmak. Right, he finds something that he knows it's a one-time opportunity to get it. And for a regular day, he could carry a certain amount of pounds. Mitamol, he could carry a lot more. Double the amount, triple the amount. Mitamol, he has a lot more koyachas, right? Where did this koyach come from? On a regular day, he can't do it. He would do it on a regular day. He would just fall down the stairs. It wouldn't be shaykh for him to hold on to that amount. Elamai, there's a koyach nela, right? The amount of our brains, and the amount of any koyach that we have, the amount that we use is very, very small percent. There's a lot more koyach there that we don't touch, we don't access. Now, even without a very unique opportunity like that, even b'pashtus, a person starts their life in their younger years. They use a certain amount of their intellectual energy, emotional energy. As you get older, you develop it, right? But even without major yagiyah, there's natural development as a person goes on in their life. You're megala more of your koyach. So when this koyach was behelim, before you used it was your koyach nelam. What you actually have access to and you use day to day is your koyach hagalui. As a person goes through the moves and goes through life and develops themselves, the development takes part in yonim from the koyach hanelam and brings it into gilui. And now you're able to actually access it. You're able to actually use it. So that's koyach hanelam and koyach hagalui. But then there's the koyachis atzmiyim. The koyachis atzmiyim is something that a regular matziv, side through many years of growth, and even unique opportunities coming up, you're not going to access it. In order to access the things that existed as a koyach atzmi, those only come when your etzem is affected. So l'dugma, when a person feels that they're in a life and death situation, people first of all have unbelievable energy. You have the famous stories of people picking up cars. That people could barely pick up a bag of groceries, and they're picking up cars. You have the Maisa the Friedgeber brings of the person who's able to leave a tiny hole and get out of during a sreifa, and later they could really fit their hand through. Right? How do they get their body through it? V'chulu. Well, there is also in koyach haseichel. When a person's life's in danger, they could come up with the most creative, amazing things that they're not shaykh. The guy's like an idiot. Like you can't figure out basic math. But all of a sudden, in these situations, you have tremendous koyach. That koyach, that's much of the you could call it the simple mashmos, the practical gilui of how these things work. And they're called koyches agloyim, koyches and elamim, and koyches atzmi. Now the koyches and elamim, so in general, the koyches and elamim are the helam sheyeshni b'metzias, and the koyches atzmim are helam she'eini b'metzias. Let's try helam sheyeshni b'metzias. Let's see over here. Let's say in the case of the koyches and elamim and the koyches agloyim, right? So we passed this. The fact that as a person goes through their life and exercises their brain, exercises their feelings, and exercises their ability to write, to dance, to art, whatever it is. So you're obviously speaking about something that betzim, it's not just a potential. It's not just something I'm shaykh to do it. I'm actually accessing it. You know, it's something that's in my conscious psyche, which is why by pushing myself I'm able to get there. by just doing the moves, by just regular exercising your brain. Just don't be right. Just as you learn and you go on, you learn more and more and more. You know more. Your brain starts functioning better, and then it comes begili, right? It's something that you have access to, something that is actually here. You're just right now you're not able to use it, or you're not using it at the moment. With a few moves, you can start using it either through just time or through exercising it properly. You're able to get it. The koiches atzmim is something that we have no access to. Why don't we have access to it? We have no access to it because in a way, it doesn't really exist. Meaning, be'etzem, if you're speaking, let's say mitzad koiches ha'adam, so what a person could carry it, right? The guy cannot carry it. I don't have the ability to do that. It's taka something that mitzad my koiches hanefesh. You'll put me on a scale and you'll test me and you'll give me a psychological analysis. Like I can't do it. Elamai. When a person carries a certain masa, when they're in that danger, in a way, what they're using now is not koyach hatnua. When a person in such a matziv comes up with a brilliant and creative idea how to save themselves, it's not their seichel that came up with it. Because their seichel is not shaykh to this. What did come up with this? What came up with this is etzem hanefesh. Etzem hanefesh, on a very basic level, is the etzem of life and the etzem will to live, right? When you feel your life's in danger, when you see your life going, you've probably heard from other people, yeah. But even for a moment, you have that. There's on a very pashastic level. There's all of a sudden you're crossing the street, and all of a sudden for a set, you see a car coming straight at you, and you have this adrenaline rush. Right? There's a moment where you're not functioning on your regular state. There's a very high energy that you feel flowing through, right? Which is in a way is a gili of the etzem hanefesh. It's the etzem will to live, and the etzem not only will to live, survival instinct, right? Just to be alive. The survival instinct expresses itself in different ways. It could express itself in a seichel-dika way. It could express itself in midas. It expresses itself in like keichatnua. Expresses itself in all of a sudden your legs. All of a sudden you're able to run in an unbelievable way. But in Zakein, it's not seichel, it's not midas, it's not tnua, it's not any of them. It's nefesh. Now, if it's nefesh, how all of a sudden could I think a certain way? If it's nefesh, how all of a sudden can I move? If it's nefesh, fine, it's just be some spiritual energy coming out of me. Because the etzem nefesh, in the etzem nefesh, there's koiches aklulim benefesh. Right? In the yachas of the koiches to the nefesh, you have a few layers. The furthest out from the etzem nefesh is the koiches aklulim. Higher than that is koiches ne'elam, and then there's koiches aklulim. Koiches aklulim, koiches atzmiyim, koiches klulim. It's the same thing. Koiches atzmiyim, koiches aklulim benefesh. The etzem nefesh, be'etzem is etzem. It's pure. It's pshittus. It's by a person. It's the etzem of life. The etzem achayis. Well, it's higher than any koiches. Elamai. The shayla then is 1 second. If you're talking about etzem nefesh, that's moved from all the koiches. Where do the koiches come from? So you have etzem nefesh, life. Now the nefesh has to function. So in order for the nefesh to function and to live your day-to-day life, so we sort of gave the nefesh a toolbox with a bunch of random koiches to use to figure things out, to understand things, to connect with things, to have feelings. But where do these tools come from? Right? So these tools are kolul in the nefesh. Koiches are kolul in the nefesh. Like oyer kolul b'moyer, kolul b'atzmos. But when we say, when we're saying kolul, what's pshat oyer kolul b'atzmos? When we say koiches are kolul in the nefesh. Someone's talking about dogma. Before in Chassidus, right? The seichel and midas. The seichel and midas. Now, seichel, when a person has seichel, general seichel is kapi atzma. Midas is for the zulas. Well, we know that people are anshe seichel and anshe midas. They're very, very different than each other. Midas is mufnam, is cold. Sorry, seichel is cold, and midas are warm and outgoing, etc. Now, in seichel and midas, it's mavur that there's midas aklulim b'seichel and moichin aklulim b'midas. Right? There's midas aklulim b'moichin. What's the midas that are kolul? What's the midas sheb'moichin? Right, what's the muscle for midas shebemoichin? So moichin is pure abstract knowledge and svaras. Right, 1 + 1 = 2. That's moichin. What's midas shebemoichin? Midas shebemoichin is when moichin starts saying, based off the facts, based off the equation that I put together over here, this is good, this is gishmak, this is toiv, this is loy toiv. Now, in a way, toiv and loy toiv, and wanting it or not wanting it is in of midas, right? It's chesed, you're connected to, or you sort of move away from it. But here we're talking about moichin geret, it makes sense, right? So let's see, when we get to Yediyas Hashem, so there's the etzem isbainos in alikos. Then there's this isbainos as kirvas alikim toiv. Then there's kirvas alikim li toiv. That's already midas. So you have midas sheben moichin. Here's the shayla. The midas sheben moichin. They're midas or moichin. How would you categorize them? When moichin comes to maskana that this flavor is good and this flavor is not good, based off the computed knowledge that you gave it and whatever and different things that it heard, this is a good place to live based on this will be a good house, this is a good community, it's not a good community. That's midas or that's moichin? It's midas or moichin, but what is it? If I have to put it on one team, midas or moichin, where would you put it? Moichin. It's called midas shebe moichin. Huh? You say it's midas. You would say midas. Right, so let's say in Iskalos, let's say in this first language, Iskalos, Chesed shebe Gvura, or Gvura shebe Chesed, right? And the Maamar always speaks about the Koiches, the way they're in Chesed, right?
It's in the higher.
So it's Gvura shebe Chesed. Is Gvura or Chesed? It's Chesed. It's an expression of Chesed in the tzir of Gvura. The Choymer almost is Chesed, and the tzir of Ispashtus is Gvura. When you say midas shebe moichin, it's the midas element of moichin. Why? Because it's not a passionate connection to the thing. I'm not actually being emotionally involved. You could have a complete psychopath that has no midas, and Pashat al pi seichel, he's like, okay, he makes the cheshbon. He's like, yeah, this is good. Tomar kirbas alikim toiv, not kirbas alikim li toiv. Li is when emotions start, when I'm personally invested in and I feel a connection to it. Here, no, I'm making a cheshbon that in math. This is 5 + 5 is 10. This is 3 + 8. It's 11. 11 is more than 10. 11 is better than 10. It's a mathematical conclusion that it's better. So it's midas, right? Now mitzad sheni, why do I call it midas bichlal? It's midas because the moment we're already labeling something, when you call something toiv and loitev or better and nach beser, you're already, that's not a seichel dika. Seichel could tell you a number. Seichel could tell you sort of a hierarchy. But the moment you call something toiv, at the moment you say something that it's roi to want this, you're entering, it's a bit of a murky space. You're already entering a space. I don't actually have personal investment, but I'm giving the sinas makim for it. But it's in the world of moichin. Right? So when I say koiches aklulim benefesh, so are there koiches? Is this koiches or is it nefesh? Is it etzem nefesh or it's koiches? It's nefesh. If I say koiches aklulim benefesh, what I'm speaking about here is nefesh. What you really have here in the world of etzem nefesh, all there is etzem. It's nefesh. There's an etzem that's pashut. Now, in this etzem, there's koiches aklulim. The koiches aklulim are the makar where the later koiches are able to be. Because the love koiches aklulim are betzem or nishtalshel from. But it's all nefesh. So what's the pshat koiches here? Koiches here is it's almost like a repository that from here. Right, that from this nefesh we're able to be in a scala, just like from the moichin, when the midrash of moichin can evolve, and even that evolution is through Meitzar Agarin, right? Only through Meitzar Agarin you're able to actually have midas. The most brilliant guy, but if they have a timtum lev and they don't not capable to feel, even if Seichel tells them a million times it's the best thing in the world, they just can't feel. Right? People that Pasha can't feel, they don't have normal emotions. It makes sense, but I can't. Doing more midas shamoich won't get you to midas. There's another process of one more we learned last year. I think there was arichas, right? The zikr no tezayin. Lefichach nikru. Anyway, so you weren't there that week. That as well, yes. No, Tumtum Alev, Tumtum Moyach. Okay, so Halderach over here, right? In order for the koiches haklolim to evolve into koiches and elamim, and then koiches hagluyim, so there's going to be a process in order for that to happen, which is that's something the process here of hakah. Right? You need a shvira in order for that to happen to bring out the koiches from there. But so there's koiches there, but was zen in the koiches? What are they? They're an expression of the nefesh. They're koiches haklulim b'nefesh. They're there, but what are they? They're nefesh, right? And therefore, when these koiches are niskala by a person, was fehlt sich. And this matzah, it's a mashal. Another mashal brought in Chassidus is that both in klali, so you have many different koiches. We have the 10 koiches in nefesh. Regularly, when a person is functioning, you can't have more than one koyach, or maybe by certain iskalos, another koyach. You can't have all your koyachs working together. Right now, a person is a tzir of chesed, they're in chesed. They could have gevura, but gevura sheb chesed. They're in the tzir of chesed, they're just using gevura to channel that chesed. Right now, my chachma is working, I'm in a tnuah of chachma, right? The person is right now in a tnuah of discovery and coming up with new ideas. The bina is not functioning. You have to then move on from chachma and move on to bina. Move over from moichin to midas. You're in chesed, later you move to netzach, etc. But then there are times where all those rules of being in a certain tzir fall to the side. When is that? When a person is in a very strong matzav of gilui hanefesh, the regular rules aren't here anymore. L'mashal, in a time of simcha, in a major simcha, right? You go to somebody, you see someone in a zman, achasne b'no yechidei, whatever is in a very big matzav of simcha. In a matzav of simcha, the simcha is poiret together, and it's a gilui v'etzem hanefesh. At that time, you see people in that matzav, they're able to do a lot of things. They're on one hand, they're in a matzav of tremendous chesed, and Ispasha says you can go to a person who doesn't usually give. By the time of simcha, they're just writing out checks, right? That's why everyone's come to the chasnas of a gvir to get their check, right? Leidach, at the same time, he could break down in tears and be completely taken over, right? The nefesh, the koiches are in such a gilui that everything could sort of mix together and there's no stirs. You see, my verbringen, tanzt und weint und schreit and what's going on over here? Because now it's not about the chesed and it's not about the gvura and it's not about the moichin. It's right now there's, in simple English we call it an adrenaline rush, but you're in such a gilui hanefesh where here the nefesh pashut kilu spritzt, and it's like. So there'll be some chachmas, some das, some chesed, some malchus, yisoid. It's one big mish. And each one, the ganze toikef. How can they be ganze toikef? They can't work together. And when they do work together, it's only when they're sort of toned down. No, now they're able to be in a scala. Right, so you have let's say in Atzilis, so in Brudim, so you have the koiches. They do work together, be skalos, but that's through the fact that they're in skala one with each other, and they don't each one work on the highest frequency. You tone them down. In Toyu, each one is a no'em loich. Every sphere shreit nor mir, nor chesed, nor gvura, and that's where they can't get along. Those spheres are Zakein. But then you reach higher in akudim, koiches haklulim. There, when you have a gili from that place, they're all niskala. Behel lomam, in other words, the way they are, the ganze toikif, and somehow they're all working at the same time. Now, it only happened in a very unique case. When could it happen? It happens when the koiches leave their own tzir. They're not about their own mitzvahs, their own tzir. The kol in yonam is gilui nefesh. So now it's not chesed, it's not gvura, it's not chachma, it's nefesh. Right, and this is the word that the Rebbe Marash said, right, when he was asked, Shav asked Rebbe Marash, who was it, that how the shivcha, the Noshim come up with the tiniest of the shivcha charuf? The Marash and Tzemach Tzedek, yeah? How can you come up with such shivcha charuf? How did you come up with such svaris? As his negeya, right, as his negeya, now there's different levels of negeya. When it's negeya, when your life's on the line, all of a sudden you're working from a very different space. It's almost like it's flowing on its own. This is the big vart of Yagiyah. How could you reach that? How could you reach this level? You can reach this level, like I said, when your life is on the line, when something crazy happens, when the world's coming to an end in 10 seconds. You'll crazy. But the vart of Yagiyah is, no, you don't have to have your life on the line, and you don't have to be going through a near-death experience, kiviyachol. Yagiyah and Erchayzer, when the Vart of Yagaita Matzasa is, through Yagiyah, a person is able to access not only the Kovetz and Resources. Kovetz and Resources comes through regular Avodah, through regular journey. You learn and you study and just grow with the time, or you have a test coming, so there's a bit of a lachatz, and your brain starts, last minute, all of a sudden you start. Yagiyah, through Yagiyah and proper Yagiyah, a person, you're able to reach what kind of Giloyim, not only from deeper dargers in Chachma and Koich HaMaskil, you're able to reach, not only Koich HaLam, you're able to reach Koiches Atzmi. You're able to tap into your Etzem and Nefesh, and you're able to come up with those kinds of svaras that will completely change the whole way you look at things and the whole way you understand Torah. Al Derech Zed, that's Yagiyah and Mitzvahs, and Yagiyah and Avtzon, and the other Inyan, the Rebbe always brings from the Tzemach Tzedek, is Medayik, Elf Pamim Kacha, the Elf Pamim Kacha is Kipshut, Imam Elf Pamim Kacha. In order to ganz eine andere Eufen wie zu lernen, ganz eine andere Eufen wie zu trachten. That's where Yagiyah is able to reach. Well, yes, maybe next week we'll continue this in also to the next Maamar. There's a certain vart here that's most of this nekuda, but that's the gilui of. So that's us. That's why we say Helm She'eni B'Metzias. It's B'Metzias or it's Eini B'Metzias. What? There's seichel here. But it's seichel hakolul be'etzem hanefesh. So it's not seichel, it's nefesh. Right? It's helem, but it's eini b'metzias. It's not what you. It's not that koyach that it is. It's like midas. Is it midas? It's not. It's not midas. It's moichin. But that's the helm shein metzias. That's the skala through Yagiyah. Now, if the shaila is if a person is mechadash b'Torah through Yagiyah, and he's able to reach Helm She'eni B'Metzias, the Vaiters, what's the chiddush of Lasid Love over such chiddush Torah? Tam l'chach. Aftem daf mi segeiras.